And now a roundtable discussion on pro gaming, brought to you by Newegg.com.
Hello everyone, Scott Smith here. I will be conducting a roundtable discussion today with some of the foremost authorities here on the esports world and the potential future of esports. I'll start right off by introducing my panel. On the far side here we have Andreas Thorstensen, also known to the world as BDS. Quite famous for everything he's done in the European scene, also well known in the States. He is the coder behind Geek Player, also now as SK Player, a professional skier in his own right, as well as current manager of Team SK. Next to him we have George Kaspiris, who is also very well known in his own right. He started out as a Half-Life Deathmatch player, was one of the best in the world, moved on to several other games. Counter-Strike, him and his clans did quite a bit of ownage in their time, as well as have done very well at some QuakeCons. It's a pleasure to have you here as well. Next to me on the other side we have Martin Iglesias. He's the head news admin for Sode Games. Obviously one of the other very well-known esports websites. Pleasure to have him. And on the far side we have Tim Lakin, also known as Gunslinger, very well known in the TFC community, as well as other areas. He's a broadcaster, has about 200 or so broadcasts under his belt on an international level. So it's an absolute pleasure to have all you gentlemen here. Thanks for taking time out of your busy day here at the CPL.
Thank you very much.
Let's start right out with the first question on a lot of people's minds. For teams to take their game to the next level, how important is some sort of corporate sponsorship? Can a team that is just a bunch of friends who play a lot per se but don't have any financial backing compete with the big boys that are getting flown to events, that are getting free computers, etc.? Let me start with you, BDS.
Yes, I definitely think so. I mean, the sponsorship doesn't make you skilled, so to say. But, I mean, most of the big tournaments have qualifiers as well, which makes it able for you to get there. But of course, if you have good sponsors, I mean, it's possible for you to go to more lands. I mean, you get hardware. Of course, it's a benefit, but you don't have to be sponsored to be a pro team.
I agree completely. Sponsorship helps big time. Of course, it can't buy you skill, but you know, you could get computers, you know, like very good computers to compete at a level at which, you know, where you have great computers at LAN events like the CPL, so you can get used to settings and so forth. That helps you get to the actual events. And I know from personal experiences, if it wasn't for sponsors, I wouldn't have even made a name for myself in Counter-Strike, because, you know, I found out a day before I was going to a CPL myself, and like sponsors, they do help big time, but the skill, you either have it or you don't. It's just a bonus. It's a perk.
Yeah, definitely they do help. Basically, the teams in the States probably have an easier chance than a lot of people in the world to get to LAN events and all that, since you can probably much drive across the United States in less than a day or two, and they're that dedicated. Teams in, say, Asia and Australia and perhaps South America might have a little bit harder chances getting to international events, so therefore they're probably going to need some more sponsorships, and it helps a lot.
I agree. I think these guys summed it up real well.
Perfect. Next question, right along the same lines. Now you've got a clan that's corporate sponsored or is seeking corporate sponsorship. You know, the companies like Intel, CompUSA, etc., are not going to start throwing money at just 5 kids who want some money to go compete. They're going to want some bang for their buck, per se, as any kind of sponsorship program would need, which would be marketing exposure, maybe attending special events. Where does the age limit that some organizations are setting to attend their events, how does that play into a contract thing? You know, meaning, can a 16-year-old be contracted by a CompUSA, and is that an effective thing? Is that a safe thing? You know, because obviously the younger you are, the more apt you are to change your mind in a month that you don't want to play the game anymore. You may be the best Counter-Strike player in the world at that point, but young is young. George, what do you think?
I think in the near future we're going to see it. It's going to be 18 years old. It's just what I see. It's like that in most traditional sports. Just enter drafts, you got to be 18 years old. That's the age. But I think in the infinite stage that, you know, gaming is at, I know CPL for one, and you'll soon start to see as other organizations, great LAN organizations, WCG, Esports World Cup, as they get larger and larger, you'll see them also, for legal reasons, going by, you know, the ESPR ratings. You know, like we're hosting Warcraft 3 in the winter, and it's a teen rating, so we're lowering it to 15 instead of 17 for Counter-Strike. So just for legal issues, we're keeping it according to the ratings, but in the future you'll see 18.
Martin?
Basically, the only thing I can see here is when it comes into legal terms with parents and you have guardians to play, and some events that might not be suitable for children under the age of 17 or whatnot. So when you start binding them in legal contracts, it might cause some issues with the parents that they don't want to do, and they can't dedicate so much time to gaming, and so they start to pull off and go for school or work. So that's basically it, I see.
I would really agree. I mean, I think what we'll see is that sponsored clans probably in the not too distant future will have some sort of an age limit and require them to be 18. Because if you think about it, along with everything that's already been said, how do you know that Johnny's not going to be grounded before the summer CPL for wrecking his parents' car? So when you deal with sponsorship, there's a level of accountability there that comes along with it, and I don't know that you're always going to get that same accountability with somebody who's 15 or 16 as opposed to somebody who's 18 or 19. So.
Makes perfect sense. Kind of going along with that same theme, governing bodies, and this is going to be kind of a two-part question. There's been some debates that all the players should get together and unite and have a players' association similar to sports, and that all the organizers should get together and set some sort of ground rules on an owner's level, if you will, about rule sets. What do you guys think about that kind of stuff? Mark?
It depends on which way organizations want to really go. If they want to team up and help each other and promote the same image as a unified source, then they probably could use a few meetings every 6 months or so. We'll have one, a lot kind of like the Geneva Conference. You just send a representative and you just shoot ideas back and forth, but nothing solid. As for a players' organization, there's a lot of players that just want to do their own thing, so there might not be a lot of chance for that happening in the next few years.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that there is a possibility for some sort of a gamers, union or whatever that has kind of a common ground and a common set of codes and ethics that they play by as far as cheating is concerned, things like that. But again, the thing for me to remember is that the gaming is for the most part about having fun, and when you incorporate that aspect into it, while having some sort of a governing body over players or over leagues or over tournaments like that, for people to be able to find a common ground, I think it's several years off, because right now it's just such a new and emerging field. It's really in its infancy, and because of that, the competition and the playing field really needs to kind of take shape out. So
that makes perfect sense. BDS, that question to you as well, but I did forget to bring the other question back to you about players' ages and player contracts. So I know that you represent the European scene, so if you can also touch on that question and then finish that one up, that would be great.
Yeah, sure. About player contracts, we have since 6 months created contracts for our players, and I think it's a vital step to make the esports scene more professional. And I mean, if you see teams right now, players are changing all the time, and it helps us a lot to make us a better team. And about the age limit, I think as well, it's a step to make it more professional. I mean, if you have an interview by kids who are 15, they don't really know what to answer, and I think it will be an age limit in the future as well.
And what do you think about governing bodies both on the owner or land management side versus player association side?
Well, right now we have so many different organizations like the CPL, the WCG, the ESWC, and the SAL in Sweden. I think it will be hard to get everyone, all those organizations, to cooperate. But I think, and we already have it right now, we have a common server settings for all those Counter-Strike tournaments. So I think it's good they're listening to the players and trying to create the same rule sets. But I don't think they will totally work together. But through the players, they will.
Gotcha.
I agree. I think as much as gamers don't want to believe it, organizations like CPL, WCG, etc., they do listen to the gamers. They really do. They read everything on the site. But there's a lot of reasons that gamers don't understand, and they'll always think that they're being ignored because of legal issues and stuff like that, and they just don't understand that, and they can't comprehend that. That's why you'll never see a players' union running the sport or the league. It'll always be a governing body deciding on rules, the governing body picking what map is being played what round, instead of having a bunch of gamers flipping coins to see whose favorite map gets played. You'll never see that.
Yep.
Well, in terms of the CPL, you'll never see that again.
Gotcha. Good answers, guys. Gunn, this next one's going to start with you.
Okay.
What do you think tournaments like the CPL obviously this is a professional thing. Obviously, you come to an event like this, you go to the ones in Europe, even some of the other ones in the States, the big qualifiers. We all know this is pretty much for real. This isn't necessarily going to go away next month, and it's not even necessarily Counter-Strike specific as a phenomenon. Let's say it just happens to be the game we're all driving right now. Sport or hobby?
Oh, it's absolutely a sport. It's definitely not a hobby, and if you were to even classify it as that, it'd be a very, very serious hobby for a lot of people. But and there's a lot of debate about that, about whether it is a sport or not a sport. But I think it absolutely is. Chess is considered a sport. Pool is considered a sport. And gaming is a very intellectual sport. It's a mind-based sport, but it also has a lot to do with dexterity, coordination, and reflexes. And, you know, are these guys at home doing finger push-ups and thumb curls, you know, before they grab their mouse? Absolutely not. But still, it is a viable sport, especially when you look at the team-based aspect of it. You look at Counter-Strike, T versus CT. You look at games like Team Fortress Classic, where each player has a different position, a certain task that they perform. That's teamwork. And as that team functions together as a unit and competes against another team, it is certainly a sport in that sense. And then the other side of it is that it's enjoyable from a spectator perspective. For somebody who could sit down and watch these guys play against one another, whether it be Unreal Tournament or Counter-Strike or whatever, in my opinion, it is absolutely a sport. And while some people kind of laugh at that now, I think several generations from now, it will become household name known as the fact that gaming really is a competitive sport.
Yeah, I think definitely it's a sport. I mean, you have to be good in Counter-Strike, you have to have team play, you have to have tactics, and you have to have skill. And it's like so in every other sport out there. I've been playing a lot of sports when I was younger, and especially football. And then you obviously have a playbook. And we have a playbook when we play Counter-Strike as well. So for me, it's definitely a sport. And you have sorry, I don't know what to say. That's about it.
Yep.
I think it depends on the individual though, because some people, like I agree that Counter-Strike is a sport, but there's a lot of people who don't treat it as a sport. It's just a hobby, just like in any sport. You know, like basketball to some people is just a hobby, just something they do for fun. But some people, they take it very serious, they practice. And the argument with a lot of people is, oh, you know, their perception of a sport is you gotta sweat a lot, you gotta run, you gotta jump, you gotta use your muscles. But there are sports where that doesn't happen, like auto racing. You know, it's just it really depends on the individual. But in my opinion, it's a sport. By definition, it's a sport. You can make money with it, so it's like a professional sport, even if it's not in the millions of dollars. The second you win $5 from a tournament, it's a sport by definition.
And Martin?
It's a sport, and everyone else already said everything.
It's a sport.
So.
Perfect.